I would love to make this a business. First generation on my dad's side here in America. We celebrate everything. You name it, you graduated, you had a certificate for it, there was going to be a party. I love the merger of cultures, really treating culture and nationalities not like a prop. The song that makes your tia or your auntie get up, something from your childhood. If your home could fit the 200 people or 250 people that you're inviting, I want them to walk away and say, this is exactly how it would feel.
Honestly, until my wedding day, that I realized how happy my mom was. I realized then that it was her wedding day too. The fact that you were able to honor not just the couple, but their entire family in that regard, it's mesmerizing.
As a Latina and having the background that I have, I was always building other people's business, and technically I was the help. For a long time in my business, I showed up as the help. You can't wish for something and not put the effort to become the person they're looking for.
Behind every beautiful wedding is a story worth preserving. Hi, I'm your host, Andrea, founder of the nation's premier bouquet preservation studio. Through building that company, I've had a front row seat to thousands of weddings and the incredible professionals behind them. On Bridal Club, I bring you conversations with the experts shaping today's weddings. It's for couples planning their perfect day and the pros who make it happen. Welcome to the club, to Bridal Club.
Welcome to another episode of Bridal Club. I am so excited for you guys to listen into this conversation. I have a leader of leaders, and when I say this, I really mean it. She is the national president of WIPA, you guys, and I'm just honored that she is here. She is also a wedding planner, incredible wedding planner that is based in Atlanta, but she does international weddings. She is behind Tinted events. Let me welcome Jacqueline Vizcaino to this podcast. Jacqueline, thank you so much for being here.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. It's an honor.
So you and I connected about a year ago. We met in person at our WIPA event in the summer, and your energy, it really is contagious. I would love for you to tell our audience who you are and then just take us back where you started.
Certainly. My name is Jacqueline Vizcaino. You can call me Jax. We're friends now. And I am a Latina wedding planner and designer here based in Atlanta, Georgia, as you mentioned. The reason we connected was because there was actually a fundamental question when it came to probably your role. We were just having a conversation and we kind of just talked through things and you were like, okay, yeah, I gotta have it figured out. I really do love to mentor individuals or be a sounding board. So I remember us connecting and we hit it off from there. With that, I also love to feed into the world of writings, contributing to Brides, Architectural Digest, The Knot, different outlets, LA Times, for example, last week as a contributor. So I really love to pour back into the industry. But when it comes down to it, multicultural weddings are my thing. I love to see the fusion of different cultures come together in celebrating those traditions and different kind of touch points and really what make the couple's heart skip a beat when it comes to how they were raised and their upbringing and their traditions. So that's a little bit about me. I can plan the wedding in Atlanta or we can take the show on the road.
I love it. And I love that you truly are all about pushing the industry forward and you care deeply about that and honestly leaving a legacy, but not for your own name, but just to truly make sure that everybody's taken care of, because the more we work together, the better it's going to be, not only for vendors, but for couples as well. Something that I love about this podcast is that it really just started for brides only, and it has grown for vendors as well. So we have a lot of people that look up to people like you that are going to listen in and they're going to get super inspired. So Jax, how many years have you been in the industry?
Technically almost 10. Tinted Events has had a little bit of an iteration. It didn't start off as Tinted, but yeah, almost 10 years.
That's amazing. Actually, really do want to dive into the fact that you didn't start wedding planning, because I feel like a lot of the people that are listening in, they want to get where you are. They see you and compare themselves to you or somebody else in the industry, and it can be very intimidating. So I'd love to give permission to the audience and to the listeners that they can start somewhere. It doesn't have to be wedding planning. So how did you start and how did you grow to where you are today?
Even though I'm known now as being a wedding planner, I actually started in the world of florist production. I did all full event design. And the reason I did that, that's probably another podcast, but it was a way to get into the industry and kind of stay incognito in the background because I didn't want to feel like I was competing with the planners. But what I did know from being part of the design process and being in the room with planners and designers, because my contract did clearly state that he needed a planner to work with me. I always knew that piece always needed to be very, very clear.
Can you tell us why too, for those couples that are listening today?
the couple doesn't know what they don't know, right? This is for many of them the first time doing this. And when they think they can take this on as a professional, I always knew, and I did this for myself when I got married years ago, is that I knew I couldn't do two things. I couldn't get married and plan my own wedding. The logistics there, I always like, hey, you know what? Need a planner. But on a professional aspect, I wanted to make sure that things were cohesive, even though at the end of the day, the end client signs the contract and this is the couple, but I would be doing them a disservice if they didn't have someone who was executing the day of, at least at minimum, the day of the event. So that's where I was, even when I didn't even know anything about wedding planning, I knew that it would be a disservice to them not having one. And then later on, having the business and realizing it just is easier to talk to someone when they do have a planner and kind of like, hey, how about we team up and we go in this direction? But from the very beginning, I always knew that I would be doing the couple this justice by not adhering to that. That was never a pushback.
And I think the way you just said it today and how you would say it to a couple, they would understand. But as you said, people don't know what they don't know. And when you're planning a wedding, is your first time planning a big event, they're like, oh, it's just planning an event. It's not. There's so many decisions that have to be made. There's so many things behind the scenes that thankfully I did have a full-time wedding planner. Best decision of my life, seriously. I was able to enjoy my wedding and just truly make the decisions that I needed to make, and everything else she just handled. I love that so
That was
much.
exactly it. And because I was part of the pretty, what I did realize is that sometimes couples like to talk about that first. So they get caught up in the pretty and they find me that way. And then they'd find their planner. And then I realized from being around planners and designers is that at the end of the day, the design had to do with the guest experience. So I started asking the couple really good questions like about the guest experience. I actually got certified as a planner, even though I had no intention of planning. I always knew that puzzle piece belonged together. But then that ended up causing a situation where my couples were saying, you're asking me better questions than my planner is. And I'm just like, okay. And then I realized, wait, they may be onto something. And then they would say, you know what? Can you be our planner? And I'd be like, no, I'm your designer. And then I started having associate planners. So I had people on my team that would do it if it was a partial situation or it was something where they just need touch points. That was fine. But then COVID hit. And I realized, do I really need the warehouses? Do I need to schlep things at 4 o'clock in the morning? What should I be doing here? And I realized that I love my nights and weekends and I love to be around my family. And I was like, but I'm great at the planning part too. And that's when I made the decision to make the shift. I was like, you know what? I have to commit. I see where my superpower is, and it's with the planning and logistics. I understand the design. I have that down pat, and that's an added value that I offer to couples now because I know what's in season. When I'm looking for a creative to execute a particular design, I know what it takes to do that. I understand spatial planning. I understand all these things that facilitate conversations that normally someone who has just entered into planning space may not know.
Yeah.
It took me about 2.5 years to actually convert into
Wow.
the planning space.
Wow, that's impressive. I have actually talked to planners that do florals as well, and typically it's the other way around too. So yeah.
That is exactly what happens. I didn't realize that until I got further into the industry where I was like, oh, I actually have a unique perspective, usually the other way around.
Yeah, and you came with the creative mindset first. Wedding planning at the end is like a business, right? The couple is the CEO making all the decisions, but you as a planner, you're the president, and then you have like all your departments in a way. I want to talk about the certification really quick because I didn't even know you had to take one. So how does that go, or what is it?
I didn't know either. I just literally was like, okay, well, it would make sense because I'm kind of that rule follower. I'm like, okay, let me get certified. Let me find out all the things. I'm very much a knowledge or information hoarder. I love information. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and get certified. And I actually asked for permission. I was like, I have no intention of using this. I just want to know what it's like to plan a wedding so that I can understand my clients. Okay, that's fine. They didn't mind. So I did get certified. It was a program within the industry. It's changed a little bit. However, I really just didn't know how it was going to impact me or future facing. I didn't know what a value it was going to be to take a step into the mind of the logistics, the hotel, the contracts, the way to present. Because when you're in a course or a certification where they're talking about planning, they talk about vetting vendors, the pros and cons, and what you should look for. And so I became a better vendor by becoming a planner because I knew what planners were looking for. I knew what would get you off the list and what would get you on the list. You follow their lead, and all those things just helped me become a better business owner. And then again, it was the power of really diving into the couple.
First of all, brilliant. So smart to get certified just to understand. Yes, we do want to speak their language and we do want to know what they're thinking and how they're thinking. So brilliant. Your brand is deeply rooted in storytelling, culture, and personalization, as we mentioned. I want to know how your own background and identity has shaped you to where you are today and how you approach weddings.
So as I mentioned, I'm Latina and I'm first generation on my dad's side here in America. We celebrate everything, right? My family was a little different because we didn't celebrate the usual holidays and things like that. However, we always celebrated the milestones. Every graduation, birthday, birth announcement, you name it, you graduated, you had a certificate for it, there was going to be a party. Like that was it with the same guest list, but we had to be creative. Like, how are you going to go ahead? And I just saw you last weekend, but we're going to have another party for something else. What do we do? So I was the honorary party person there. And from very, very young, as my trajectory evolved in just going from being the family member that did it to thinking, you know what, I'm not too bad at this. Like, I really enjoy it. And I remember sitting in my car one day with my best friend. I was like, I would love to make this a business. Goodness, what if I could make this a business? To get to the place where I really honed in and realized that I love the merger of cultures, of really treating culture and nationalities not like a prop, but really just diving into the thing that makes the song that makes your tia or your auntie get up, and something from your childhood, subtle nods to their culture. Because being Hispanic American, you're raised with this particular culture, but there's and pieces that kind of hit home more than others. However, when you're planning a wedding, you have all these opinions from everyone. And you're like, oh, you should have this, and you should have this, you should do this. But there's always one or two things that really hit the nail on the head for a couple. And I love dissecting that. Hence why that whole planning part was like, oh my goodness, we can deep dive into this and we can still have a subtle nod to your culture as much as you'd like or as little as you'd like. And this would also apply to collegiate, those who are part of sororities and fraternities. Like that's a family in and of itself. What does that look like when they celebrate it? It's not just the culture and the nationality of where we were born from and how we were raised, but it's also the culture of how you live that is also infused into a wedding. So for me, that is what has shaped my approach to weddings and events. Is just, I always say, if your home could fit the 200 people or 250 people that you're inviting, I want them to walk away and say, this is exactly how it would feel.
Oh, wow. I love that so much. When I was getting married, again, I think I wasn't super engaging on the planning process because I had a really big business to run. Obviously, we made the decisions, but I wasn't the one planning. I always thought I would be planning my own wedding, and I just didn't, and I have no regret. It wasn't honestly until my wedding day that I realized like how happy my mom was. I can count the times I've seen her that happy, that I realized then that it was her wedding day too. Ultimately, I am her first daughter who got married, period. The fact that you're able to honor not just the couple, but their entire family in that regard, it's mesmerizing. I want to talk to you about being the president of WIPA. We often talk about WIPA on this podcast because this is my second year on the board. And I remember we spoke a few times, and again, we met in person at that event in August, but then it was in November that I was like, hey, do you have like 5 minutes? We both know that if you want to serve on the WIPA board, it truly is beyond yourself. You have to be coming from a good heart and serving others, and everything else comes back. And we do expect everyone in any chapter to basically do the same. I seriously spend over 10 hours for WIPA on a week that we don't have events. On event weeks is probably like 40, and I'm not kidding. I have no idea how you're doing it all.
Well, if that's a question, I have a really short answer. I do a lot of focus blocks. So I block up my time.
Right.
And my time is dedicated to that thing. And then I just make it intentional that for the next 50 minutes, this is what I'm going to be doing. So I've had to convert to that method just in life in general. That's been one of the things that has been very useful I think after last year, I probably would testify that I had 28 hours in a day versus 24 because it's just so much. I do less things now, but I think, like you said, there's a servant heart. There's a lot of collaboration, but I also do feel like realizing that you have a team, that you're collaborating with other people
Yes.
and they have a role. And sometimes I may spend, I like to call it windshield time. So if you know Atlanta traffic, sometimes when we get out there, I can have a good hour or two on the road. And I use that windshield time to kind of like bounce things off of people and really get my answer instead of being siloed in my thought process. Now, of course, there's some things that I can't get into detail about, but sometimes you just need to talk it through. And I know when we've had our conversations, sometimes I don't know that I even gave you an answer. I just think I listened and we just talked. And then at the end, we're like, oh, okay, we're good. Sometimes you just need to be around those individuals. So serving on a board really does help to amplify the way you communicate and the way you lead, because that would be my second aspect, the act of service.
Yeah.
Leadership really is an act of service.
Yes. And you're right. When we spoke, it wasn't like a definitive answer to the question I had. It was more of you listened to me first, and then I was listening to you. I'm like, if she can do it and she's working so much, I can do it too. And it was just honestly like an inspiring conversation. And that just continued to push me through, you know? So, yeah.
There's not too much ego. Leadership in the wedding industry, I'm sure in different industries it looks different, but I don't want to say it's not rocket science, but what I mean is it's not proprietary information. What we do isn't proprietary. The way we do it may vary, but then because of all the variances, you're leading all these people that have different aspects of looking at something and you're like, okay, well, now my mind is that much more open to have the discussion and say, okay, well, let's look at it through this lens. And it really does help the pressure of like, it's okay. It's weddings. We're going to be okay.
I love the aspect community of it. Of course, as a leader, you know, bringing in the members, it's incredible. But like even with the board itself, it truly is, as you said, like one interaction at the time. It truly is the way you're interacting with everybody that counts. And I feel like it just adds up in a way.
It's compounding. It's over time. I had never been on a board prior to being affiliated with WIPA or on the board, and I started on the Atlanta board, local board. And I had to be taught how to be a board member. I would get loans. My mentor in WIPA, she'd be like, no, this is how you are a board member. And I was like, oh, you mean I actually have a voice and I can actually give my opinion? And I'm not used to that. I didn't know what that looked like. And you just learn how to give respectful opinions and how to respect other people's opinions. And it's like, you're doing all these things. You're doing them in real life. You're doing them as a business owner. But as a board member, the responsibility to know that you're speaking on behalf of all your members,
Yes.
it could be heavy or it can be a privilege.
Yeah. Which I truly believe that is a privilege. It is truly an honor to be on the board of WIPA. Truly, truly. I would love for you to talk to us about what it's like working with you. Like, I'm a bride, I'm getting married, I reach out to you. Walk me through your journey process.
If you had asked me that maybe a couple years ago or a few years ago, I probably would have started with finding your ideal client. I've come to the point where in the way I approach my business and some of the modifications and what I've learned over time, I really do get great clients. So really what I would say is when it comes to the approach, personalized approach, I find that for me, when they do sign on and we become partners, right, in this journey, I'm their planner partner. That's how I'm referred. I'm not the help. I am their partner. We do a very personalized kind of deep dive onboarding that takes about 2 hours to 2.5 hours. Initially, we're talking about just some logistics. We're doing some housekeeping, things like that. But then we go into a onboarding deep dive, understanding their dynamics and their relationship dynamics. And it's things that they've never even really talked about or acknowledged. It's funny, by the end of the 2 hours or 2.5 hours, they're like, I didn't know that about you. Oh, I didn't realize we really like this. And it's more about how do they live, where do they shop, their favorite designers, favorite music, flowers they don't like, love, things that they love about events and don't love about events. Just all these things. Literally, I'm like, hey, kick up your heels, get your favorite adult beverage, and we're going to have this onboarding. And they're like, are you serious? And some of them, because my clients are very analytical, I have a lot of doctors and lawyers, they're like, okay, I think. And then when they get done, they're like, oh, that was so much fun. but this has facilitated me to build a structure within the planning process where it's customized to them. It's customized to how they live, what they enjoy, what their hard no's are. Like I already know that at the beginning. And then as we go for when it comes to vendor partner procurement, it's ideal. Once they then show me like, okay, well now I want you to just share with me like your top 5 photographs that caught your attention that you were like, ah, this is dreamy for my wedding. Just with that deep dive and those 5 images, I can be on the search for the best match for a photographer.
Which is so crazy because as a couple planning a wedding, you may like somebody's work on Instagram and you just think that you're going to be a good match. And personally, I learned with mine because I changed photographers for my wedding. I am just so glad that I didn't go with the first pick. As you said earlier during this conversation, you just don't know what you don't know. You're able to literally vet personalities even as well, which is so crucial too.
I have to say, and it's just recently where my couples were like, Jax, like you're hitting it on the nail with these vendors. And I've attributed it to this deep dive because they have personality nuances too, right? I understand that this person may take this caliber of product or execution or creativity, but their personality may not mesh. There's no way I can get past the personality to then get there.
Yeah.
But there is a personality for that person that's another couple. There's 2 marriers here. There's partner 1 and partner 2, and they have different personalities. Sometimes they'll meet in the middle, or sometimes I have a case where I have a couple out of Seattle, and it's evident that what makes their heart skip a beat for each of them are totally separate, and they've actually given themselves autonomy. So one partner is able to make the selection for these particular vendors, the other one, these vendors. However, that comes with the responsibility to match the right vendor partner.
Yeah. And just to give an example to our audience, imagine that you hire a makeup artist. You don't do a trial. And the first time that you guys are meeting are the wedding day. That person energy, if it's not synced with yours, she's going to dictate how most of your wedding is probably going to go because she's the first interaction, the first vendor interacting with. I really hope that you understand the importance of having a great wedding planner that can truly mesh your personalities just by talking to you and getting to know you more. This is going to be very important for you and for your whole experience throughout the day. And of course, even years later, looking back.
If they're a talker and you have social anxiety, and there's some questions in that whole process, that deep dive, that actually I give them a rapid, would you rather do this or this, this or this? And when they're like, stay home, eat out. Like it really does seem random, but when they tell me answer those things, I know that there's a certain point where they're going to have a tap out.
Yeah.
Jax, you know what? I don't want anyone else around me. There's others who their energy is always surrounded around people. That is great. But maybe the vendor is very introverted. They don't say much. They come and do their job. And then they're like, wait, she doesn't speak to me. I don't understand what's going on. Those are the little things. They're like, well, those were random questions. I was like, but I can tell you that you're going to be great at the front end, but at the back end, I'm going to need to go ahead and give you that little bit of isolated meal times. And they're like, oh my God, that's exactly how I am. My social battery is running out.
Obviously, the way you think is very strategically.
They do say planners are controlling, and I feel like I do feel that feed that sensation of control, but it's very strategic and it's very aligned where we're controlling the situation so that we have the answers, not because we want to manipulate the situation. I just need the answers to the situation.
You know, Jax, as a business owner with a ton of team members, I make them all do a few assessments when I'm hiring. And one of them is actually a personality profile. And the questions are just so random, just like that, right? But at the end, it gives you a chart. You're better working by yourself. You're better working with a team and stuff like that. And so basically, that's what you're doing, an assessment for them.
Also helps me meet them where they're at when they're in that. I can tell before they get into the panic stage of like, it's been too quiet. Did we have everything? I make that phone call and that, or send that email. Either they want to be left alone in the process or they want to engage in the process.
You mentioned that you work with very high achieving people like lawyers and doctors. For those who have weekend, or a multi-day celebration, how can you make them feel comfortable and present instead of actually getting overwhelmed with all the details?
All the details. From the onset, I'm very in tune with the things that they constantly need to know through the process. So there's some things that they won't let go. They just won't. And that's the thing that they need to be reassured. I had a wedding a few weeks ago, and the reason she chose this venue was because of the antique doors that she was going to walk through, that were going to be open, and she was going to walk through. At the precise timing of a song that was a surprise to him at 26 seconds. Like, that was the thing. And this is from the beginning until the moment she got up and walked. She's like, I'm worried about the song. And I was like, we got you. And I let her, and that was it. So did it matter about the seating arrangement? Those things just didn't matter. So I take that one thing or that couple of things, and it's like, okay, that's the one thing that they do want to know about, right? Some people don't really care, but for the most part, I want them to feel very comfortable in their space. And then also the fact that they're high achievers and they're professionals. I always use the analogy. I don't tell them how to perform brain surgery, and they don't tell me how to do weddings. That's why they hired a professional. That's like, and they're like, oh, how, but it's the truth. Like, at the end of the day, this is why you brought me on, is because you brought me on as a professional. And that, to be honest with you, was a mind shift in the way I presented myself.
I love that.
Because as a Latina and having the background that I have, I was always building other people's business. And technically, I was the help. And for a long time in my business, I showed up as the help, as the person who was like the big sis energy that knew how to plan weddings. And that had a shift for me because I couldn't have my boundaries if I wasn't professional and really didn't believe that I was a professional and presented that way. And I also couldn't grow in my business and the caliber of clientele if I also didn't present as a professional. So there had to come a time where you can't wish for something and not put the effort to become the person they're looking for.
Yeah. And going back to being a WIPA board member, right? Ultimately, our positions, yes, you do have a voice. In fact, not only do we want you to have a voice, that is like your little business in a way.
And you're not always going to have the right answer. You're not always going to agree, but I'm the professional. When you say you want this, it's my job to tell you that when we make this decision, these are the things that it will affect. And at the end, this is also the probability of the result you're going to get. So that's my job. Do with it what you will, but I will hold you accountable for making a decision.
Oh my God, I love that so much. So obviously you specialize in multicultural weddings, which we mentioned that before. Do you have a couple examples that you can give us that you love?
When I have multicultural fusion, where I have someone from the United States and then maybe another country, that usually is a situation where you're truly paying respects or those nods. So it's almost not intrusive. So that may look something like, okay, I'll give you one where they had met in college. They're both attorneys. Her family's from South Georgia. His family's Arabic. They did have a Catholic ceremony, and then they had a portion of the entertainment where they not only had their Arabic set of music, they also had the dress. They had the waistbands with the coins on it and the hats. They did their dances and all of those things. And it was just such a lovely meld of it. The tea party that they had, the hosted tea party, those things. Sometimes you'll have the treats, the welcome bags will have treats from those countries and things like that. I'm planning one now where she's from the Carolinas and his family is Nigerian. So we do have those attire changes and we have the food. So the concessions are, they want the food to be Nigerian, and then they want the music to be more Western with a touch of. So those are the kind of things. And then when it comes to lifestyle, when I'm talking to the couples and we're doing the deep dive, sometimes it's a situation where we're doing the questions and they're like, what do you do with your friends? And they're like, well, actually every week we have a game night. So when I present the design or the flow of the event, it's like a cocktail hour. Instead of having Jenga, we're not gonna have those big, like, obscene kind of games, but we have things on the cocktail tables where it's like a little game, so that those people who do participate in the game night are like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. This is what we do every week. And the others that don't, they're not looking at it like, what is this?
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a little nod to something. If when they see it, they recognize it.
I love that. What a beautiful tribute to the couple, the families, and their close friends too. And at the end, I feel like somebody who experiences one of your weddings, they're gonna leave knowing the couple even more as a couple, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, most definitely. It can be in the photography, it can be in the background, it can be in the invitation. It can be in so many different places, but well, the other day I was talking to a couple and I was like, why don't we take your photo from the engagement shoot and make it like larger than life? And they were like, nope, we're not that. However, what they would like is the film because their shoot actually included film, actually Super 8 video. It's going to be projected on a wall. It's going to just kind of be there in the background, but very subtle, very faded. So it was just like, it's still the same thing, right? They're getting
Yeah.
featured. You see them, but the approach, the delivery is different.
Looking back at somebody who got married, what would you want them to remember from one of your weddings?
Uh, One of the key things is organization. Things that are organized are truly an anomaly these days. Most people don't go to an event where they're led on time through the scenario. One of our Tinted's mottos is the environment must change every 45 minutes to an hour. Have you ever been to a wedding where or somewhere where you sat there and you're like, I've been sitting here for 5 hours?
Oh yeah, 100%.
There's a certain timing. So that's why it's so crucial that we start on time because technically it's almost like I have a nervous reaction if it's okay, no. Okay, now if you're gonna do one of those okey dokes and say 5 o'clock, but really starting at 5:30, and that's how we plan, that's one thing. I need that from the get-go, but it's so strategic. We start on time and then we go from there because they cannot stay in that same, whether it be a change in sound, whether it be a change in visual, whether it be a change in what room they're in, something has to change to where they get to the end of the night and they're like, first of all, most everyone is still there. And then they leave and they're like, we're done. This was great
Wow.
because we had a flow. And that only comes by being extremely organized and knowing what comes next. And I don't really allot for a lot of time for the things that are traditional, like they're probably happening simultaneously with dinner or at some point in dinner versus we're going to eat and then we're going to do the toast. No, like in the dinner, there's somewhere where we're doing the thing. So we get to the, and we're on the dance floor. That is my other thing. Most of my couples, they love to be on the dance floor and I can get them a good amount of time on the dance floor.
As we mentioned before, a lot of vendors are actually listening to this podcast. What would you tell them if they want to become a wedding planner or build a career very much like yours that is trusted?
I understand wedding planning isn't for everyone, and as someone who's in the photography space or the video space or the makeup space, they may not see themselves as a planner. But fundamentally, when they're selling their services to a planner or even to an end client or even the individuals they meet at networking events, one of the things I can't stress enough, especially in this day of age, is first of all, respond swiftly. Get your quotes out there very, very quickly. If not, someone else will and someone else wants to. I understand that there's vendor lists and I understand that there's groups and pods and people have to protect the people they work with so that they know that they're going to execute the thing. But just know that there's just more people who would like to work with you, but you have to show up in excellence. If you want the caliber of client that is going to maybe add another couple of thousand to your package and eventually you're building up or whatever that model looks like for you to expand your business or really elevate your business, you have to be willing to put in the work and present yourself that way. One of the ways is for me, when it comes to photography, I don't want you to pitch me 6 hours and then I have to do all the add-ons to get to my 10 hours. I want my couple to have 10 hours. Let's start from there. Let's start from the dream and let's whittle it away. But give me the dream. I don't like tire kicking. Another thing that it's our rule with Tinted is we do not go back and say, can you bring your price down? You deserve to get paid what you get paid, period. I stand by that. And if your services are XYZ, absolutely fabulous. That's what we'll do. If you choose to modify something because that's your choice, because you want to be in that venue, there's different reasons that as a business owner, you make different decisions and you're like, let me go ahead and tweak this. But at the end of the day, you do have value, and it is up to me to support that. I'm not a tire kicker, and it's not my job. I am not hired to find the best deal. I'm hired to find the best match. Yes. Do I know their budget? Yes. Obviously, I shouldn't be going to someone and I could propose it. Hey, this is where they're at. If you're willing to, here we are. But I'll never like reverse engineer that.
I love the way you think so much.
Oh, thank
Yeah, this has been fabulous. I would love for you to tell our audience where they can connect with you and where can they find you.
Well, first of all, at events.com is our website. And then you can find me on IG at Tinted Events with an S. And Tinted, the reason Tinted, I'll give you a little bit of a background, is because I'm tinted. Yeah. Dominican, tinted, like tinted glasses,
Oh
tinted
my
color.
God. I meant to ask you that question. I love
Yeah.
that.
And the other reason is when I was doing design, it was back when Pinterest, it was a thing, right? And they would send me, I don't know how, this one bouquet would always get sent to me, but it would look different on the day of. Like, obviously, like you're not going to get that bouquet. And I realized that people have a tinted glass, like they're looking at something, but at the end of the day, it's my job to put on those glasses and say, okay, what is their tint?
Oh my
What is it that
gosh.
they want? So easiest way to find me is tintedevents.com. And then you'll be seeing some other things come from me in the future because mentoring and really facilitating conversations like this really make my heart skip a beat. So I'm going to be pursuing more of that.
I love that so much, Jax. Thank you so much for your time. Truly
Thank
honored.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. This is such an honor. Been fun. Thank you.
No, love you.